Hey everyone, I want to jump in right now to the federal CISA unemployed or fired from their positions. Government agency CISA, we're going to dive detail as to what positions were gone, eliminated, and what potentially this means for the United States because CISA is here supposedly to protect us, Americans. And if we are slacking on cybersecurity, obviously someone's going to take notice of that and they will take advantage of it. So join me here and let's watch this quick clip of what's going on.
200,000 federal employees have lost their jobs since the Trump administration began its overhaul of the government's workforce in its effort to cut spending. One of the affected agencies employs cybersecurity experts responsible for protecting our nation's critical infrastructure. We spoke to one federal employee who was fired just 6 months shy of the end of her probationary period.
Before this continues, the probation period, from my understanding after finding out and doing some digging, is 3 years. Can you imagine a 3-year probationary period? That is pretty lengthy. Every probation period that I've ever had was always within the 12 months or 1 year. So let's keep on watching.
More than a decade as a senior intelligence analyst with the U.S. Navy, Shaw was recruited just over 2 years ago to the nation's top cyber defense agency, CISA.
The goal of it was to find and root out the adversary.
Shaw scoured for cyber criminals in U.S. critical infrastructure, like the nation's power grid, pipelines, and water systems.
Now we see a departure of over 100 CISA employees. What message does that send to China, Russia, Iran, our adversaries, about our readiness?
Yes, they notice. I'm sure they notice.
We are weakened to the point where someone is going to take advantage of this. Someone's going to try and do a checkmate because right now, as far as if you're into playing chess or any game in reality, is that if you find an opponent's weakness, you're going to focus on that weakness and you're going to, it's a vulnerability at that point. You're going to try to compromise that vulnerability. And this is the game that we're playing with real life scenarios.
That there are less eyes on the target now, which means that they have better opportunity to do these nefarious actions in these networks.
The mission was considered so important, Congress launched a nationwide recruitment program in 2021 to attract the brightest minds to work on it. Shaw was one of the program's first recruits, but it came with a lengthy 3-year probation period.
This should be the last place that we should be cutting this expertise.
Now, more than 130 workers have been cut from CISA, 4% of the Cyber Defense Agency's workforce. Ranking member of the House Homeland Security Committee, Democrat Benny Thompson, calls the cuts a gift to our foreign adversaries.
That kind of talent, you just don't find it every day. And you have to convince many of those individuals to leave lucrative private sector employment.
They did not look at our performance.
Just weeks before.
I want to chime in here for a second. Obviously, we just left off at they're not even looking at performance. They're just looking at probably how much money you're making and how long you've been with the organization. If you're not past your probation period, you're probably going to get let go. The other thing is I want to mention, as far as my research into this, when you lose talent of a certain caliber and they need to survive, meaning they need to just eat, buy food, live, in the United States, don't be surprised if they end up working for the adversary. They may end up working for the other team. And I don't think anyone wants that. So you want to try to retain all your talent as much as possible. But if push comes to shove and you don't have a ground to stand to retain your top talent, yeah, you're going to be expecting the worst. So let's finish this off.
Before getting fired, CISA granted Shaw a salary bump based on her performance.
I just got the commendable mission impact, and then a month later, I get laid off, fired. So, yeah, that makes no sense. It just Makes no sense.
And just yesterday, Rob Joyce, the former NSA cybersecurity director, warned on Capitol Hill that the cuts will have, quote, a devastating impact on cybersecurity and national security. Kelly Shaw tells us that as upsetting as her firing has been, she would return to CISA if asked, and she's actively looking for another way to serve the country.
All right, guys. So I want to also bring up another article here. After trying to do some research on who's Kelly Shaw, so we have obviously just saw the video on who she is exactly. Unemployment is unfamiliar territory. This individual has obviously the talent, the skill, and was at one time protecting the entire nation with her abilities, plus, a few other members of her team, right? But now that they're being let go, I wanted to dive a little deeper until, to figure out what positions did they actually let go, right? So they were talking about, they cut 4% of the cybersecurity workforce. 4% is pretty significant when you're only, a small group, right? I mean, 1% of 10 people is significant, right? You're losing, I would say, knowledge, power, experience, like people to cover you. Like no one works around the clock. No one's there 24 hours. They may do double shift once in a while, but you need coverage, right? These are 24-hour socks. And I definitely believe that because I'm experiencing that. I see that for myself. I know what that is like because I work for government agency. I've worked for many government agencies. So let's dive a little deeper right here in this particular article. Who was compromised? Who were the vulnerable ones that were let go? And I did see a few mentioned here. So we have Kelly Shaw. She just, they just did a video on her. They interviewed her and great. So it wasn't about performance, right? It was the fact that she did not reach her, past her probation period. She was vulnerable. She had, whatever cost saving cutting from the Doge agency, they're letting people go. All right. And then the former manager of cybersecurity and infrastructure was the Cyber Sentry. And I'm going to pull that up over here. This is the, full details of what CISA does and how they function in the United States, right? It's all, very transparent. It's all out there. This is what they do exactly to keep you and I safe from other nation state actors, all right? And then now we have looking into what positions were compromised. So I want to state right here, it says the CISA workers mass fired in the Valentine's Day massacre during the holiday weekend last month. I mean, they basically took a whole bunch of names and they just said, hey, we have to let you go. Be well, and we'll see you again next time, if ever, right? So right here details exactly who was impacted or what type of positions in cybersecurity were impacted by all of this, right? So among them, right here says the nation's threat hunters, incident response team members, disabled veterans and employees who already signed on to the federal government's deferred registration program. So those sort of individuals, threat hunters, incident response team, those are critical to any type of cybersecurity activity because you can never have enough talent in those industries, in those fields, in those groups. So eliminating that is playing with fire. That's just my opinion. So I wanted to also kind of cut off here. It reinstates the fact that, they literally cut the people who were like 99% right here, close to almost completing their probation period. Because during your probation period, when someone lets you go, an organization or a company lets you go, there is no reasoning. There is no paperwork to file. You just didn't qualify. And if they wanted to cut costs because of whatever situation at that current moment and someone's under probation, they're going to go first, right? Because once you pass probation, you're basically given a pass, right? Not a guarantee pass, but a pass to say that you're doing your job, you're good. But if we're going to fire you or let you go at this point, we have a lot of paperwork to fill out. And that's not something we want to always do, right? So that's the current situation right now. So I looked up Kelly Shaw. This is her LinkedIn. And right now, the CISA position is still there, 2 years and 3 months, and obviously she had some extensive time with the government agencies, right? You have an intelligence analyst here on the Navy SEAL, naval intelligence. Sorry, 5 years and 4 months. So it's not about having no experience, more than enough experience. To land yourself in a position at CISA is not a joke. So I wanted to share all that with you. Yes, this is bigger than it is. This is just the beginning of it. These these videos, these interviews, the positions have just been let go. As we're going to be finding out more, there's going to be some consequences along with these actions. So stay tuned.